Want dis ons land, dis ons taal, en sonder soek aan ons gaan stories waar we lewe in die duine hoog gebou uit sand, die helder see en die goue straat, die landskap wat oor generasies vertel, die harte wat in ritme met die golwe val, ons land, ons taal.
Hallo en welkom by Kletskompas. Vandag kuier Angela Prusa vandag by ons in die ateljee. Sy is die stigter vir die vereniging van dagga en hemp hier in Namibië en sy gaan bietjie met Tanja Bause gesels oor wetgewing as ook die grondwetlike uitdaging van wette wat dagga in die land verbied. Maar voordat ons daarby uitkom, gesels ek en Ogetto Craig weer 'n bietjie oor vandag se nuus. Onthou ook dat julle steeds kan inskryf vir ons videokompetisie deur julle inskrywings via WhatsApp aan ons te stuur en hier is 'n bietjie meer inligting daaroor.
It feels good to football with GoTV.
Works the space well and scores.
Nobody but GoTV gives you all the games of La Liga and the DStv Premiership.
This is extraordinary. Oh,
The Premier League and UEFA games that matter and the world's favorite cup competitions. Get your Go Coder with 1 month of Super for only $799 to enjoy the football Vuma. GoTV. Love it.
Ogetto is weer vandag hier in die nuusstoel. Baie welkom.
Baie dankie Christine. Dit is 'n eer en 'n voorreg om weer hier nuus te kan praat.
Ja, baie lekker nuus wat ons natuurlik vandag het. Hier voorop 'n bladsy 1, 'n storie oor 'n musiekonderwyseres wat meer as 50 leerdlinge het van wie sy verskeie fluite leer speel. Baie
Fluit.
oulik. Ja.
Ja, dis pragtig en baie laat voel 'n mens goed.
Ja, speel jy enige instrumente?
Nee, ongelukkig nie.
Ja, ek dink dit is 'n groot voorreg vir mense wat dit leer en wat dit kan doen. Ek wens ek kon ook 'n paar meer instrumente gespeel het.
In die stort sing ek graag vals.
En dan natuurlik jou storie. Vertel vir ons 'n bietjie meer hieroor.
Ja, dis eintlik 'n baie interessante verwikkeling. Dis 'n vennootskap tussen 'n Namibiese maatskappy en 'n paar maatskappye uit Duitsland. Die vennootskap is bekend as High Iron. Dis nou vir hydrogen en yster of waterstof en yster. Wat hulle doen, hulle gebruik die waterstof om die ystererts te verwerk om yster te vervaardig sonder om enige koolstofdioksied emissies te veroorsaak wat oor die algemeen gepaard gaan met die verwerking van yster. So dis 'n skoon verwerking van yster. En hulle sê hulle het nou al so baie belangstelling gekry in die buiteland dat hulle genoeg bronne van yster kan kry om nie voort te hoef te gaan. Hulle sou yster 'n projek vir 'n myn oorgekoop het, maar hulle gaan nou dit eers los vir die oomblik. Hulle gaan nou eers die toetsaanleg bou so 57 km noordoos van Swakopmund op 'n plaas daar. En daar gaan hulle ook oor 40 hektaar groot sonkragaanleg bou met 44.000 panele. Die aanleg verskaf dan die krag. Hulle gaan daar watersuiwerings klein aanleg hê om boorgatwater te versuiwer en dan met die krag van die sonkrag met elektrolysis gaan hulle die watermolekules skei om suurstof en dan waterstof te kry en die waterstof gebruik om die yster te suiwer en dan aan die einde van die proses een van die nuwe produkte is weer water wat hulle weer terugsit in die proses. So hulle gebruik van water is beperk en daardeur gaan hulle nou die yster vervaardig wat baie skoner vervaardig word en reg oor die wêreld baie gesoek word, hierdie skoner yster.
Ja, dit klink na 'n groot storie.
Dit is 'n bietjie ingewikkeld, maar dit is nuwe tegnologie wat toegepas word hier in Namibië. Dit is 'n uitbreiding, sal ek sê, van die land se ambisie om hernubare kragbron te word vir Suider-Afrika en ook vir die wêreld om te help met die oorgang tot 'n meer volhoubare bestaanswyse. So, maar dit is 'n praktiese toepassing van tegnologie en dis iets wat is 'n baanbreker toets aanleg wat hulle nou bou. So as dit werk soos hulle beplan en hoop, dan sal ons nou die wêreld lei en hierdie tipe tegnologie sal dan oral in die wêreld toegepas word deur ander aanlegte te bou, maar ons het ook yster in ons tussen al die hulpbronne wat ons onder die grond het. So dit sal ook hupstoot gee vir ystermyne wat nog kan ontwikkel en wat beplan word hier in Namibië.
Ag, dit is wonderlik en hier is 'n baie lekker storie.
Dankie.
Net langsaan ook lees ons oor die Ministerie van Onderwys, Kuns en Kultuur wat aangekondig het wat hulle begroting gaan wees in terme van skryfbehoeftes.
Ja.
En hulle het reeds hierdie geld gestuur aan die streke en nou kan die streke besluit of hulle hierdie geld gaan inbetaal in die skole se rekeninge in en of hulle dit gaan gebruik en dan self die skryfbehoeftes verskaf aan skole. Wat dink jy hiervan?
Kyk, ek vat dit maar met 'n knippie sout, want al het die hoofkantoor gesê en geteken, daar is nog prosedures wat gevolg moet word. Ek weet nou nie of die streeksbeamptes reeds die geld het en wat se prosedures daar moet gebeur voor die skole reeds die geld het en wie dan die geld moet bestee om eindelike skryfbehoeftes te koop wanneer dit eintlik gekoop gaan word. Ons weet laas jaar was daar skole wat in September nou nog hulle skryfbehoeftes gehad het. So ons hoop maar hierdie jaar sal dit beter gaan. Maar een spesifieke dingetjie wat in daai artikel genoem is wat my redelik getref het, is dat ons het amper 900,000 leerlinge reg oor die land. En as jy dit vergelyk met ons hele bevolking, is amper 'n derde van ons mense is skoolkinders. So ek dink dit verander dinge 'n bietjie en
dit maak dit natuurlik vir die ministerie nog moeiliker om te begroot vir hierdie groot aantal kinders. En natuurlik baie kommer oor hoe die geld gebruik gaan word, maar die ministerie het verseker dat die streeksdirekteure die verslae gaan moet saamstel en dit aan die ministerie moet indien om seker te maak dat dinge reg verloop. So ons hoop maar dat dit die geval gaan wees en dat al die leerlinge die skryfbehoeftes sal kan kry wat hulle moet.
Ons hou dit vas.
Ja. Dan natuurlik op bladsy 2 ook 'n lekker storie na groot kommer oor die cheetahs wat van Namibië en Suid-Afrika af Indië toe gestuur is en dan nou die goeie nuus dat daar 3 nuwe welpies is.
Uiteindelik en met die nuwe jaar, né?
Ja, so mooi. En dan nog so 'n paar van die cheetahs was Namibiese cheetahs en 'n paar was Suid-Afrikaanse, maar die 3 welpies was van 'n Namibiese cheetah. So ek dink dit is definitief 'n baie lekker storie.
Ja, ek stem saam. En daar is nog baie om te lees.
Ja, in ons koerant en môre doen ons dit weer. Môre gesels ons weer oor nuwe stories en ons sien uit om julle môre weer hier by die nuus te hê. Dankie Ogetu.
Baie dankie.
We are all seeking connection to each other, to the world, to the spaces we exist in.
Is dit van seil wat hom kom uitrol hier van die posisie.
More sportsmanship right now from the lads.
You might be physically ready, your body is ready, but mentally.
Here's another chance and it is a goal from Vandag.
Wys hy sê die is er aan neertrek en daai bal het my grond gevat. Ja, hy het grond gevat en is hy
But just enough next.
Running that mountain up. Okay, so we will be doing this for the mountain climber. More advanced, slightly advanced.
So
is jou trolley reg? Want
I love that. I love that. So then
kickstart our countdown at number 5 with this one.
Op Netwerk TV se Kletskompas gesels ons nuus van 'n Maandag tot Donderdag. Ons kyk ook na die weer en meer. Stories wat jou raak en stories wat saak maak.
They've made a mistake in denying me bail and they've made several other mistakes in many other cases.
The channels that teach us something new or reflect our expression. So it goes beyond switching to the right station. It's about choosing the experience that can adorn the present, dressing it with our tastes as we expand our preferences, because what we are actually connecting to is boundless, limitless human energy, and this is the spirit of NTV.
Nou 'n vinnige kykie na môre se weervoorspelling. Rendu het 'n minimum van 20 grade Celsius en 'n maksimum van 26 grade Celsius. Windhoek 'n minimum van 18 en 'n maksimum van 30 grade Celsius. Swakopmund het 'n minimum van 17 grade Celsius en 'n maksimum van 18 grade Celsius, met Keetmanshoop wat 'n minimum van 16 grade Celsius en 'n maksimum van 34 grade Celsius het.
In 1994, a group of Namibians saw a need for a grassroots Namibian medical aid fund. The Prosperity Medical Aid Fund was born right here, among the hard-working fishermen and ship workers of Walvish Bay. In 2001, in order to establish a fund focused on its members that put their health first, the fund formed its own identity away from its administrators, Prosperity Health. It was named Renaissance Health as a symbol for the renewal of medical funding in Namibia, a transformation in health. Renaissance members voted for their first board of trustees who would carry the fund forward for all Namibians. By 2010, Renaissance had members across the entire Namibia, a fund founded by Namibians for Namibians to ensure access to quality healthcare. In 2020, RMA was put to the test with COVID-19, supplying life-saving oxygen machines door-to-door to members when our Namibian hospitals were full, saving many of its members' lives. RMA is not just a medical aid fund, it's a partner in health for its members, whether through our chronic compliance programs or yearly wellness checkups. RMA was started by you. It belongs to you. A proudly Namibian first medical aid fund providing the best in care for all Namibians. Renaissance Health Medical Aid Fund, serving Namibia since 1994. RMA, your health comes first.
Vandag in die ateljee saam met my is Angela Prusa, die stigter van die Cannabis and Hemp Associatie. Welcome here.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for your time. Angela, how would you describe your work relation to dagga?
So I work with dagga daily actually. For the last 6 years, I have been supporting people on their health journeys with this plant. So I do consultations with people and then basically create a product from the cannabis plant that can support them on their health journeys. I don't just work with cannabis, I look at health in general as to what can support them. But yes, so my daily relationship is with this plant, and I have also worked for 10 years in California in the cannabis industry. So I have a very close relationship with this plant, and I can see its huge potential.
And we know from people that use it, especially cancer patients, that there is merit for it.
Yes.
What is Namibia's history in terms of dagga, and what is the current situation in terms of local law enforcement?
So let me start where we are currently. It is quite a brutal situation, I think, that we find ourselves in currently, because we have quite a significant number of people utilize cannabis in Namibia, whether that is for medicinal purposes, because they are self-medicating, or just because they are wanting to relax after work, or because it is part of their spiritual practice, like in the Rastafari community. And there is a huge discrimination against dagga cannabis uses in Namibia. The arrests are often very violent. People are being humiliated, their dignity is being violated, they are being put in prisons. Often the sentencing for cannabis is very disproportionate to its harms, or even the amounts that they are in possession of. And this law, if we look at the history of cannabis use, is quite a recent law. We adopted that law from the apartheid government in South Africa, the prohibition of cannabis and all cannabis-related substances, including hemp, which is non-psychoactive. It is cannabis, but without the high amounts of THC. And if you look at history, and what has been written so far is that before colonization, there was a thriving trade and consumption of cannabis in Namibia by the indigenous communities. It is also the plant worldwide, actually, that we as humans have had a really close relationship with all over the world for thousands and thousands of years. And again, medicinally, spiritually, recreationally, and so we find ourselves currently with this apartheid prohibition law that is discriminatory and violates people's human rights.
Because there's not really, the amount doesn't matter. You can have 5 grams in your pocket. If you're caught with it, you're caught with it.
You're caught with it. And, and this is also what seems to be happening a lot in the courts, is that the price gets inflated, the value of the actual dagga. But also very often the dagga is not tested. I know people who've been arrested growing hemp. The dagga wasn't tested, and essentially hemp, is a non-psychoactive dagga plant, and have still been arrested. And what's also really shocking to me, I think, looking at what is happening, is the fact that we get awarded freedoms by our constitution as Namibian citizens. So we have the freedom and the right to privacy, we have the freedom and the right to express and, live our culture, our religion. We have all the fundamental freedoms of dignity, of human rights, of all these things. And the prohibition of cannabis directly violates that. And the hypocrisy is that we allow people to express those freedoms when it comes to alcohol, to tobacco, to sleeping pills. Yet we take that freedom away, and we violate people's human dignity when it comes to cannabis.
Which is also a natural plant.
It is a plant made by God, and it has many benefits. For me, the argument with this is, and I think often people have this really skewed view of what we want to create when we talk about legalization. Currently people think of legalization, they think of chaos, but actually when we look at legalization, that is how you create order, and that is how you create oversight. Currently, not just cannabis, but all drugs are being regulated by the criminal market and the syndicates. Nobody knows what is in their cannabis. There is no education around it. There is no age restriction on buying it. And the way that you reduce those harms, the way that you keep our youth safe, the way that you educate our youth, the way that you make sure that the cannabis that people do consume is just pure cannabis and is not laced with other chemicals, is by regulating it, is by decriminalizing it. And also when we lock people up for consuming a plant that is proven to be less harmful than alcohol, tobacco, and sugar, you know, you are taking away those human rights and you are destroying those communities. So you're increasing then again the violence, and you're increasing the addiction in those communities, because you're pulling breadwinners and you're pulling mothers out of the communities by arresting them for essentially a plant that, in the privacy of your own home, not harming anyone, you should have the right to consume.
And I agree with you, because alcohol in general makes so much more, or causes, especially in Namibia, we are consuming a lot of alcohol, causes so much more problems. I've never heard of a person using dagga, for instance, and then going out and beating his wife.
Yeah,
for argument's sake, you know.
You know, that's exactly the point that you are making, is really, you know, I think, which is one that we, and this is where for me that hypocrisy is really, really visible, because we allow people to consume alcohol. You know, humans have this innate, it seems to be part of our constitution that we want to engage in risky behavior. You know, we want to drive fast cars, we do, you know, extreme sports, we drink alcohol, we eat trans fats and sugar, you know, all of these which are affecting our health negatively. And then we enforce these draconian laws with a lot of violence onto people who choose to engage in something, in a plant that is definitely less harmful. And, you know, the other thing as well in our communities, I think the lack of education is really evident about what cannabis is and how to safely consume it, because I work with a lot of the communities, and also a lot of my work is, I'm an acupuncture practitioner for the Vandag protocol, which focuses on trauma and addiction. And so what I see a lot is people utilizing cannabis to smoke mandrakes on. And so people think, you know, that's what the cannabis does, but that's not what the cannabis does. It is what the mandrakes do. You know, so essentially we don't have a very clear view of what, you know, how does cannabis look and how do people act when they consume it, because also a lot of the cannabis that we consume in this country comes in from South Africa, for example. Yes. To get it across the border, you know, people need to make sure that it doesn't smell, so they spray it with things like Doom, you know, they add in chemicals to make it more addictive, you know, they add in chemicals or other things to put more weight, and all of this in turn affects our health. But still, you know, essentially the evidence over many, many years in many different countries, you know, disproportionately shows that alcohol, it doesn't disproportionately show, it shows how disproportionately more you know, harmful alcohol is to the user and to the community. Yes. Because like you say, you know, we have huge rates of domestic violence, child abuse, you know, like femicide, you know, women being murdered by partners, neglect, and a lot of this, and also violent break-ins, etc. And a lot of this is related to the use of alcohol, you know, even just the amount of car accidents that we have from people who are driving drunk. And yet we still allow people that constitutional right to consume alcohol. So, you know, my argument is, if we want to reduce the harms of drugs, we need to legalize them, because that is how we keep our youth safe. We need to educate them, we need to regulate substances, and we need to award the same freedoms to everybody, regardless of what their choices are.
Yeah, and that's where the legalization is so important. We need. You said you had something which you wanted to add.
Yes,
something
I have
important.
I have a quick thing that I wanted to read, which is actually written by the previous president of Switzerland, the previous president of Mexico, and the previous president of Colombia, who all sit on the United Nations narcotic boards. And basically they wrote an article which says, after decades of wasted money and lost lives, it is time for governments to stop prosecuting a futile war on psychoactive substances and instead embrace drug legalization and regulation. Only by taking back control of the drug market from criminals can policymakers begin to address the realities of substance use and abuse, because the market for illicit drugs represents the world's largest criminal commodity. Yeah. And essentially we are wasting police and state resources, you know,
fighting
this instead of investing it into the communities. The amount of money that is being spent on police officers arresting, you know, cannabis users, we could build new rehabs, we could train social workers, you know, in trauma-informed social work, and we can support vulnerable members in the community.
Thank you so much for your time. Unfortunately,
we didn't even get to the hemp.
Yes, exactly. But maybe we should have a follow-up interview.
Yes.
And then we can talk about hemp and the good things,
and the potentials for our country.
Exactly, other industries in the trade. That was Angela Prusa.
Thank you.
The Champions League, we've got the favourites. And if they're on song, well, they'll give us a bit of everything to enjoy. Well, here we go. The first of taste. And the break is on here. It's a red card. Vinicius Junior! Oh, my goodness! There works the space foul! Lewandowski! Oh, magnificent! Mbappe! That is a stunner! Haaland! What a finish! Coming onto it now to shoot! Champions of Europe, finally!
The 2023-24 UEFA Champions League. Be moved with every game live.